Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Thanks again for joining me, Jim Wiggin, with Athearn Train Tuesday. And man, do I have a packed show for you today. We've got it all. We've got a little bit of HO, we've got a little bit of N-scale, we've got some diesel, and of course, we've got steam. So let's see who's joining us out there this afternoon or wherever you may be. We have Kevin on board. We got Rick Simpson. We've got James, Kevin, Don, Joseph, John's Railroad videos. He's saying hello to everybody out there. Let's see, who else do we have here today? We have Kalen. We've got Jay Cure, Kyle. Oh, he wants to know, is it NKP steam? No. But it's steam, and that's good for something. James says he's excited to see some Union Pacific FEFs, and yeah, who's not? These are exciting locomotives. These are all we've run these before, but these have got some all new features in them. We're going to talk a little bit about today that you guys will get to see. We got Anthony all the way from California. We've got Andrew. We've got Bob. We've got Robert. So it looks like he's excited about steam. And let's see, we got Richard, Kevin, Terry, Shane, Anthony. So we got a full station here today. We've got a lot of guys coming on board. I'll give some more shout outs here in a little bit. We'll get some more folks gathered together. And yeah, we're actually going to be talking about UP steam today. We're going to be talking about the 484. A massive steam locomotive and considered by many a modern steam locomotive, kind of steam's last gasp before the maintenance issues took over and diesels kind of went forward from there on out. We'll talk a little bit more about that later as well. So let's see, who do we have? Looks like we got Terry to join us. We got Frederick. Let's see. Looks like we've got everybody packed and ready to go into the station. Eddie, welcome aboard. And John, he says, in N-scale as well as I hope. We've got some N-scale. We've definitely got some N-scale. And so it looks like we're going to have a great show. We've got a lot of guys on here. And so without further ado, let's talk about UP steam, shall we? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to talk about the FEF, the 484, the Union Pacific steam locomotive, really came about in 1939. If you look at steam locomotives, this isn't your small prairie class little tea kettle locomotive. This was a massive feat of engineering. And even though I'm more of a 1970s type of guy where I'm using first and second generation diesels, you can't but help appreciate a modern-esque locomotive such as the FEF. It's just a massive beast. And really the only thing that, kind of numbered it, made it its days numbered, wasn't because it was inefficient as far as pulling power. In fact, the FEF was one of the strongest steam locomotives that were a non-compound locomotive. But it was maintenance. If you think about it, the fuel necessary, the coaling towers. In fact, we still have one here on the old Illinois Central line, just north of me, a big, massive coal structure. Just the maintenance alone on that building and maintaining coal levels. Water, not too far from me is the old Wabash water tower that's in Bement, Illinois. It's kind of hidden in the distance in the trees now, but at one time that was a rather sizable yard. And steam locomotives needed to take on water. They had to take on all of those, different types of fuel. Later on, they started using oil, and that was a little bit more efficient as far as the maintenance ways. But at the end of the day, the mighty beast, the mighty dragon of the rails, basically succumbed to what the diesel could do, and that was not as much maintenance, not as much manpower to get one of these massive beasts to roam the rails. So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to be releasing, and then we're going to talk about the features of the new FEF. And so let's go ahead, and I'm going to share my screen here so you can see what we're talking about this month. And let's see. There we go. I want to make sure you guys can see all that. So here, right in bright yellow, bright yellow box, you see that we've done one of the biggest features is it's now including the Tsunami 2. And we've had the Tsunami 2 decoder in our diesels for a little bit, and we've had really good success with those. When this was first offered a few years back, it did not have a Tsunami 2. This is all new, and the sounds that are going to be coming from this locomotive, we just can't do it justice in the video. It's just amazing. And you know what the guys out at Soundtracks are going to do. They're going to get actual footage of a locomotive. And I don't know if you've heard George come on the show. He's talked about it in the past. It's one thing to set up with a microphone beside a locomotive and have it do its various noises. But these guys, they crawl around these locomotives and they get them in different sound effects that they do too. And they spend sometimes days getting these sound files for you just to make it that much more authentic. So it's exciting to have these Tsunami 2s on board now. Now, of course, you can get them without the sound as well. But most guys, I think, are probably going to want to enjoy the sound of the FEF. And who does not want to hear the sound of a whistle from one of these locomotives? Just a really cool sound. So the first ones that we're offering are the FEF 2s. And, as I was saying earlier, the FEF program basically came about in 1939. There were 15 FEF-2 Class 484s, numbered 820 to 834. And they shared a family resemblance to the bigger Challengers and Big Boys. They were built as coal burners. And they originally had single exhaust stacks on top. Drop coupler pilots and what they call a centipede tender. The reason for that is just the massive amount of weight that was back here, both the fuel and the water. It was just easier to make this centipede style tender to support all that weight. Now, that being said, that's because they carried about 25 tons worth of coal and another 23,000 gallons of water. So you can see why the engineers went ahead and did that. Now, when they were rebuilt, there was a couple of things they did. They would sometimes receive double or even triple exhaust stacks. Now, the example we've got here has a dual. So right up front, we've got the FEF 2. And you'll see we're offering it in two different paint schemes. And I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on these. And this is just, really indicative of that era of steam. Just an impressive locomotive, impressive paint scheme, very nicely done. These are how these would have appeared just prior to the FEF-3s that we're going to talk about in a minute. Just a massive, locomotive when you think about it. Even though it's not like the Challenger or the Big Boy, two compound locomotives, it's still, a 484 is going to be a massive locomotive. And they, of course, were, more popular in the Midwest into the West, not as much in the Northeast except for certain areas, but still a massive locomotive. Definitely made for mainline freight, mainline passenger years later. So during the traffic crunch of World War II, they built about 10 more 484s, and these were classed FEF-3s, and they were numbered 835 to 844. And we'll go scroll down here. By the way, those are 830 that's pictured up here. This is for 1949, and then this one here is 1952. So we're still talking post World War II. And we get to the FEF-3, which is like the one here I have from the previous release on the table here. And you notice some subtle changes. The biggest change is you notice these wings here. They're sometimes referred to as elephant ears. And what that did was that basically helped in the airstream divert the smoke so it wasn't getting all into the cab. Without that, just because of the amount of smoke that was coming from the stacks, it would sometimes billow and get not only within the cab, but if it had passenger consists, that too. This actually helped streamline that airflow so that the smoke would billow and go much higher, if you will. So that was one of the biggest spotting features that you can see on these. And these here are later. They were originally built earlier, and these ended up going on to become oil burners, like we were talking about earlier. Originally, they were coal burners, but by the 1950s, a lot of your steam locomotives in this capacity were going to be an oil burner. Now we're doing 844, which has a really interesting history, and we won't go too far down that rabbit hole, but look it up sometime. 844 is an interesting locomotive. It was originally 844 until years later a GP30 came on the roster and had the same number, so they just added a 4 to this one, 8444. And now since it has been, we're doing the 2017 version, which is a high shine black, and it's back to its original number, 844. And it's also going to come with a limited edition box, because it's also going to have the reason why we're doing that, it's the race to promontory version. It was used in tandem with the big boy 4014. And so if you pre-ordered that guy, you're going to want to get this companion right here. So what other upgrades have we done to this locomotive? Well, we've done a few. The Tsunami is definitely the most interesting thing that we've done, but we didn't stop there. I'm going to go ahead and remove this, and I'm going to show some pictures and talk about these pictures. We did some upgrades on these based on customer feedback from the previous run. And we did some other things that, quite frankly, it's time to update. One of them being the LED lights. You're not going to see the incandescent bulbs like you did in the past on this particular locomotive. You're going to have LEDs. And that allowed us to do a few other things. Now, let me go ahead and share some photography that was done. Now, keep in mind what I'm showing you here is from the previous run. So this isn't exactly what you're going to see with the new versions. But I wanted to give you guys a sense of size and scale and show you what they look like. So here's our pair. You can see the one that I've got on the table is pictured here. And just cool locomotives. So, like I was saying, we've got the LED lights. We're going to have dual cube speakers in this because, again, with the Tsunami 2, especially with a steam locomotive, the way they're set up, you're going to want that dual speaker. It's just going to make it sound that much more in depth, if you will. It'll bring up more sounds effectively than just having that one speaker. Also, too, the other thing that's kind of neat is the firebox is going to have an LED in it, and that's going to flicker, much like the full scale would. Now, it's not a big bright light. Don't think of like a 3-rail O scale locomotive. This is very subtle, but it is there. And if you're doing dusk or night operations on your layout, it's kind of cool to see that. And then the other thing that the developers did is, and what I'll do is I'll kind of minimize this for a second. On this previous run, you had your tender and you've got a multi-plug that plugs into the tender so that, everything functions correctly, that umbilical cord, if you will. The problem with this last run was while it worked effectively, you guys that take your locomotives to maybe a club layout, or you may be taken to a modular setup at a show, that repeated plugging and unplugging after a while, it would tend to degrade that plug and things would need to be serviced again. Well, they've upgraded that. They've changed that design. They've made it a little bit more robust, but not taking away from the scale effect of the locomotive. So that's more of a practical thing for you guys that want to enjoy this locomotive on your club layout or a show type of setup. Go back to our pictures here. And so this gives you an idea. You can see with these are FEF3s. They've got those elephant ears that we were talking about earlier that better distribute the smoke. And as you can see as well, each locomotive has its own set of details. 8444 here has the Mars light, whereas 844 does not. So they're going to be specific based on the version you purchase. Just a really great, outline of this locomotive. Very impressive. And an HO scale, if you've got a good size home layout or a club layout, this is going to be a very impressive locomotive. So yeah, definitely, if you're a steam guy, doesn't matter if you're a Union Pacific guy or not. If you're a steam guy, you're probably going to want to call your hobby dealer and, give them a call and say, hey, I got 4014 on the way. I really could use 844. So think it over. These are much different locomotive from the previous run. They're still going to have that same green-tail that the previous run had, but they're going to have those upgraded features like the LED lights, the Tsunami 2, the dual speakers, the better connection between the locomotive proper and the tender. So a great locomotive. And I can tell you, even with this one here, we've run it a little bit, and hopefully I'll get some video just to kind of show you guys, if you're not familiar with these locomotives, just how great these locomotives run, how great they look, and how great they sound. And with the Tsunami 2, I'm really excited. We're gonna hear a big difference in the sound, and really looking forward to that. So that's what we have about the steam. Now, while I'm getting ready to transfer to the next announcement, I'm going to check and see if anybody has any questions on the FEF3. Let me see. I think I see one here, and I'm going to check. I saw a question out there. Are we doing other locomotives besides 844? Yes, we are doing 830 and 833. And just for your information, 830 is the two-tone gray with armor yellow lettering and striping. That has an oil burner, a drop coupler, dual smokestacks, and this would be appropriate for your layout if you're modeling 1947 to about 1949. Number 833 is a two-tone gray with some subtle differences in the silver gray lettering and striping. It is also an oil burner. It is also a drop coupler and dual smokestack. This one is a little bit later, 1947 all the way to about mid-52. And that's about when a lot of these big steam locomotives were slowly coming off the rails and being retired. And then, of course, the other two that we're doing is 835 and 844. We talked about 844, but 835 is a solid black oil burner. This one's a triple stack. The smoke lifters are the elephant ears that we were talking about. And this puts it around 1952. So if you're modeling transition era, 1950s, yeah, you could have a lot of fun with this locomotive. All right. Checking to see if there's any other questions. Sean, any other steam today besides UP? No, not today. That doesn't mean anything, though, because as we showed you guys last week, there's a lot going on at Athearn right now. The developers are super busy, and if you're a steam lover, don't worry. You will not be disappointed. All right. Just checking one more time. Okay, so next we are going to go to ready to roll. And I know this month we kind of skipped around a little bit, but I wanted to give you guys something, a little bit of everything, so it wasn't too heavy on one line. I wanted to give you a little bit of everything. We're going to talk about the 40-footers. And these 40-foot boxcars that we're doing, they're with the superior door, which basically puts you, again, this is transition era. So if you're into the FEFs that we're talking about right here, or if you're into the GP9s or even the 18s that we just hit store shelves this past week, these are for you. Now, 40-foot boxcars are great, especially if you're one of the guys that maybe lives in an apartment and you've got one of these switching layouts that's maybe 8 feet long and only a few inches deep. 40-foot is perfect because, one, for that era, you could justify a small company getting a boxcar every other day or every other week, depending on how big of a company it was. Whereas nowadays, that's not quite as common unless it's a large distributor, say like a grocery store distributor or a large bakery. Plus the 40-footers, you can get more into that area. So let me go ahead and share my screen so I can show you what we're talking about. And again, 40-footers have always been popular with modelers for various reasons. Height of popularity really was in the 1950s. And with that being said, that's when we were going through an era of brightly colored boxcars. And, you know, for the guys that don't like graffiti, you didn't really see graffiti back then. You saw these really cool billboard style boxcars that really were not ashamed to say who their owners were, like the Great Northern. We've got the Great Northern here and the Louisville and Nashville. Now you'll see that by the dates, Great Northern, you're right in the 1940s. The L&N were right at about 57, which is when a lot of cool 40-footers were coming out. These were still pretty much standard freight cars then. So again, if you're a guy that's in the transition era, if you're into the 60s, you can weather these up really well. And don't forget too, people forget a lot of these kept on going in the 1970s. I'll talk about that in a minute too. But these are perfect for anybody out there that's got a home layout. Maybe you're happy enough to have a really large layout. Maybe you have a small switching layout. These are great for taking to the club. They're ready to roll, so they have the grab irons are attached, the roof walks are attached. So they've got all that great detail that you're accustomed to seeing. Not quite the Genesis, but you get the ready to roll price, which means it's a little bit easier to build up a freight train, especially if you're just getting into the hobby. And you can take these, like I said, to the club layout. You can take these to your module Fremo setups at the different venues that are going to slowly start opening back up again. So yeah, we're offering the Great Northern in 3 different road numbers. And again, that's 1940s, late 1940s. L&N 1957, 3 different road numbers. I met up with somebody a couple of weeks ago at one of the shows, and he says, Jim, every time I talk to you, or every time I see you on Train Tuesday, somehow you get Boston to Maine or Maine Central in there. I did not mean to this time, but there it is. McGinnis era, Boston to Maine, 40-footers, 3 different road numbers. And you'll see that a lot of these cars were looking like this in about 55, 57. You know, for the Boston to Maine, this was a new image. They got rid of the Minuteman and the maroon, and they went to this this blue and black paint scheme, which it looked attractive. Didn't stay attractive for long, unfortunately. But these here actually did survive throughout the 70s. It was not uncommon. We've got the Southern Pacific. This puts us squarely into the middle of the 50s. And this one, by the way, is lettered for T and NO. We've got that for 3 road numbers. little bit more subtle, but you still have the big, bold sans font here. You've got the big, bold logo. And we go back to the Northeast with the Rutland. This is 1955. 3 road numbers there, and of course, the Rutland would finally go away by the mid-60s, early 60s, mid-60s, and kind of change into something else later on. But these were perfectly appropriate, and you would see these with the McGinnis cars that we talked about earlier. You'd also see them with these Erie Lackawannas. These are 1970s, though. By then, the Rutland, the Boston, Maine, the New Haven, a lot of them would be pretty much used up. Still being used, but being used up. Here's the Erie Lackawanna, 1970s era. Slightly different look to it. A lot of these would end up even in the Conrail era, and some of them would become maintenance away cars. It was not uncommon for some of these 40-footers to end up as a maintenance away car in the 70s into the 80s. Sometimes they were used as, kind of like what we use containers for now. Sometimes the containers find new life as a storage unit. Well, they used to do that with these 40-footers too. And then last but not least, we have New Haven, also a McGinnis era car. McGinnis was with the New Haven and then went on to the Boston and Maine. And so we've got 1950s, and you can definitely tell by the fonts of some of these cars that it's squarely in the 1950s. Bold colors, big logos, a little bit different than what we had just after World War II and before World War II. And again, these have body-mounted parts. They've got their grab irons, their roof walks. They come with the metal wheel sets, so they roll great on any type of commercial track that's available. Now, I don't have a picture of one of these because, again, these haven't been made yet. These are open for pre-order. Everything I'm showing you at this point of the show is pre-order. You need to get with your dealer and order these. But I do have one from a previous run. This will kind of give you an idea. If you've not seen these ready-to-roll cars before, this will give you an idea of what they look like. So let me bring that picture up. Make sure I've got the right picture here to show you. Here's one that we did last time, a couple of years ago. This is based on a Western Pacific prototype, but this gives you an idea. It's got the superior door. It's pretty easy to spot the superior door. These big panels versus the smaller ridges. And again, these were so common from the 1950s and until, in some cases, all the way into the 70s. Yeah, and I'm looking at the comments out there, and it's so right. I mean, Kyle is saying, freight cars are painted so much differently now, and it's true. Modern freight cars tend to be a gray, black, white, depending on what they are. Very simple lettering, very simple logo. And why is that? Well, because freight trains have changed that much in just, 70 years. Pretty much nowadays, a lot of your trains are going to be stacked trains or unit trains, and they go from point A to point B. Where in this day and age, it was not uncommon for you to go even into a small town and go down to the feed store or in some cases a furniture factory or anything of that nature and see one of these box cars parked on the siding. So they were literally a billboard. They wanted to show the world, hey, these goods got to this thanks to, and then fill in the name of the railroad that is, adorned on the side. So it was literally a lot of these are called billboard era boxcars because they were so brightly colored, and they definitely wanted to put the corporate name out there because trains were more visible back then. Whereas now it's pretty much from point A to point B. And while they're visible, they're not as visible as a little switcher trundling through the narrow streets of, say, New York and delivering to different industries throughout the town. So again, these are available till the end of this month. You have till next Friday to order these. And like I said, everybody likes a 40-foot box car because they can be used for literally just about anything on your layout. 40-foot box cars have been used for everything from corrugated cardboard to even grain. So if you're interested and you're modeling anywhere from the transition era of steam to diesel all the way to the 1970s, consider these box cars. All right, so I got one more we're going to talk about today before we go on to some other news. And this is a Roundhouse offering. And you'll kind of see that the theme is not necessarily, okay, we just picked Genesis, we just picked Ready to Roll. I tried to pick items this week from the announcements that all kind of fit together. So it'd be perfectly acceptable to see this locomotive with a 40-footer just as much as it would be just as acceptable to see our next item. And that's from Roundhouse, and that's the 34-foot offset hopper. Now, these have been extremely popular in the past, and we wanted to offer them again. And these Roundhouse hoppers, they're coal hoppers. What these are perfect for is when you get to go to shows again. And if you're part of a modular club like Fremo, I mentioned Fremo earlier, there's a lot of HO scale modular type clubs that they set up at shows and such. And if you want a solid train of nothing but these 34-foot offset hoppers, this is going to be an easy way to do it. Now, these are inexpensive. Their loads are removable, and they're available as both a single and a 3-pack. So let's dig into what we've got here. I've zoomed in a little bit. We got to offer the Santa Fe. Just got it. This is the 1940s, squarely right where the FEF is. And again, we're offering this as a single. And this one is available in 2 packs of 4. If you look real carefully, the part number Roundhouse 1281, that's slightly different. It doesn't have the logo. The other offerings have the logo. This one does not. It just has the reporting marks on it. The developers try to do that within the realm of possibility as best they can, just to give you a little variety. Even though it's the same railroad, you want to have a little bit of variety. So we go from the 1940s, now we go all the way to the 70s. Yeah, these cars had a long lifespan. The CNI, I'm just going to call it the CNI because I don't want to offend anybody out there in the Midwest with my butchering of Cambria. But the CNI is what we're showing next. And again, this one is going to be offered in a single and 2 packs of 4. But what's really cool, look carefully here. Each multi-pack, do you see this in the corner? If you can't see it, I'm going to zoom in on it just so you can see it because it's kind of cool. Remember, I said the 1970s. Each multi-pack is going to contain a different bicentennial car like this here. And yes, it did happen. There's a prototype for virtually everything. We talked about it a few weeks back, in the 1970s. Peaking in the mid 70s, the railroads and everybody was bicentennial crazy, and the CNI was no different. So we got the 1940s Santa Fe, we got the 1970s. What else have we got? Oh, we got the Chesapeake and Ohio. This is 1950s. Single pack and 2 4-packs. Again, real easy to build up a solid train of these. While we're in the 1950s, let's go over to the other side of the country. Let's go and look at the Great Northern. You got Rocky right there in the middle of the logo. Their earlier logo before they went to a slightly different logo in the later 60s. Single and 2 4-packs. (1950s) again, Pittsburgh and West Virginia. So we got 40s, 50s, 70s. We got to have the 60s, and we look at what we got. B&O with the Chessie the Cat, Chessie system. So each one of these releases, you can get just a single car by itself, or you can get one of those multi-packs, and all the multi-packs come with 4. The coal loads are removable. These are already weighted for you. They've got McHenry couplers. The brake wheels are separate. Even though they're Roundhouse, yeah, they're not going to have the fidelity of a Genesis, but they are great runners for taking to shows, and it's so easy to build up a solid train of these cars that a lot of guys that buy these, they buy them for 2 reasons: younger modelers, or they just want to make an impressive train for their modular setup somewhere, and that's where I see the most of these. Now, again, I don't have a picture of the current one, but I do have a picture of one from a previous release. I believe it was from the last release, just to give you an idea just how these look. Because again, if you've not seen these before, you're just looking at basically a line art representation of what we're going to be making. So let me show you, in case you've never seen one, what they look like in real life. It's really nice cars. And no, they don't have, like I said, they don't have the fidelity of the detail of a Genesis car. You've got really nice printing, really nice detail here, with a little bit of weathering. These cars look phenomenal. And you know, the Roundhouse cars, that's where they really shine. They're inexpensive. They've got just enough detail to pass the test. Because let's be honest, when you're set up at a modular setup at a train show, 90 to 95% of the crowd are not going to know if that grab iron is supposed to go there or not. These are perfect for that type of venue. They're also perfect for younger modelers, because we all know what it's like when we're younger. We don't have the dexterity that we do as adults. So you're not going to want to hand a Genesis car to a younger modeler until they've learned to operate correctly. And these are great for that. So there you have it. I mean, this has been a great month, May. I mean, we've got 3 Genesis offerings, including a Steam. And we've got freight cars all over the spectrum. Pretty much what we talked about today was cars that were appropriate to go with this steam locomotive here. And these are going to be available for pre-order until next Friday. You have till next Friday to make your orders with your dealers. Talk to your dealers so they can secure those for you now, because you don't want to be coming into your hobby shop next year at this time and seeing, oh, I really like that, I'm going to pick that up. Well, sorry, that's for Roy. Roy did a pre-order. You didn't. Got to be like Roy. All right. So that's what we've got for May. Next week, we'll talk about some more things from May. But now it's time for Athearn News. And I'm excited because I got my GP18s no more than we did Train Tuesday last week. And the GP18s were in stock, and they went right to dealer shelves. And a lot of folks, I've already had people contact me saying they got their GP18. I received my GP18s on Friday. I was happy to say that mine came in Cascade Green. And, they're just great little locomotives. They're perfect for everything from mainline to small switching layouts. So really don't have anyone to show you, because most of you guys, if you ordered them, you've got them. But Janik and I were talking today, and he said he had some sneak peeks for us. And so, how Janik is, he's really good with a smartphone. And he wanted to show some pictures to everybody. So first, let me get these up here. And I'm going to ask, how many out there want some Midwest F units? I'll just throw that out there. And more importantly, who wants to see some, let's go with some second generation diesels, Midwest, 1970s, 80s. Anything? I've also got some trucks to show you, and they're not Ford. I know you guys have been asking for trucks too, so all right, I'm gonna get rid of the suspense. I know you Rock Island fans are gonna be really excited by this, but here we go. This is just to let you know they're on their way. These will be here, and we're looking at July. These are the FP7As. We talked about these last year. I believe January of 2020 is when they were announced. And I get a lot of thumbs up for the Midwest F units. Yeah, Rock Island. I mean, these are cool locomotives. Rock Island, mighty fine line, and we've got these coming. These should be here about July. That's what they're projecting. Janet got these and took a look at them. I'm going to zoom in on some of this detail so you guys can see. You can read the lettering. Look at the detail in these locomotives. So again, I think we announced these in January of 2020. And if you pre-ordered these, you'll be hearing from your dealer around July. And as time goes on, we'll get more pictures up just to show you guys. But I wanted to show you what's everybody's working on. So also in July, not only do we have these beautiful Rock Island, that was one of the coolest paint schemes too. Not only do we have the Rock Island FP7s, we got trucks. Now, if you're a guy that's modeling the 70s and 80s, you have to have these on your layout. We've talked about these in the past. These are not conventional trucks. These are cab over, COEs. Once very, very common on American and Canadian roads, not as common anymore due to regulation changes and trailer lengths and things of that nature. But if you're modeling the 70s and 80s, you need to pick these up. These are the Freightliners. They've been a part of the Athearn line for many years, but they've been updated. You can see the green one is kind of a standard, private owner. Whereas your YRC, your yellow freight, it's got the air splitter up here, the air dam. And all these little detail parts that we used to have to put on, they're all done for you. So fans of the 70s and 80s that are looking for a different tractor trailer combination, There you go. These are coming out. These are coming out. They should be here about July. I see Terry. I see Terry's comment out there. Long live the Freightliner. Little bit of trivia for you guys, and I want to see if it's just a Midwest thing. I've heard this kind of a not a derogatory name for Freightliner, but kind of a nickname for a Freightliner. What's another nickname that you? If there's any truckers out there, throw it out there in the comment section. Let me see if I can substantiate my claim of talking to a few truckers, but they didn't just call it a Freightliner. They had another nickname for it, and it had to do with the ride quality sometimes. I'll see if anybody gets it here. There we go. I think I just saw it. Uh-huh. Especially these old COEs, because you were right on top of that axle and engine. That's another reason why you see so many conventionals now, because conventionals ride a little bit better, especially on those long hauls. Now, kind of going along with the Freightliners, we've got something else coming up. A little bit more modern, though. Containers. These are supposed to be hitting dealer shelves probably about later July. We should see these. Yeah, from what I can tell, late July. This is what impresses me about these. I'll zoom in so you guys can see this. Look at that. You can almost put a placard in there. Great detail on these. So if you pre-ordered these were announced, I believe, last spring. And these are the 53-foot. I didn't mention that. These are the HO scale CIMC 53-foot containers we announced last year. And so look for those in late July. Now, let's have some fun with the next one. I'm thinking of a railroad smack dab in the middle of the United States. And as soon as you think you've got a guess, throw it out there. And as soon as I see the guess, I'll throw it up on the screen. I'm just going to keep giving you clues until somebody gets it. But let's think of a main line smack in the middle of the country, the United States, and really important railroad. Technically, a railroad that still exists. It was purchased. So. Amtrak? No, it's not Amtrak. We're going to go with freight. Tom. IC. And specifically, what I'm going to show you is an IC from after 1968, because it's the ICG. Illinois Central Gulf. Thanks to the merger of the GM&O and the Illinois Central. And I don't know why, but I really like the paint scheme that they came up with. A lot of people didn't. But the GP38-2s that we announced last summer, be looking for these. They're going to be probably here about September. And check these out. I am a sucker for the ICG era. I just love that orange and white. I know some folks weren't as big of a fan of these as the green diamond paint scheme. But let me zoom in on these too. We got two schemes here. We've got the orange and white with the split rail, now it's the unified rail logo on the nose, and then the orange and gray. which a lot of folks did not care for that paint scheme when it came out. Now, a lot of us look back on it with a certain kind of fondness. Genesis GP38-2s. And this is just one of the offerings. There's others in that release as well. But I mean, GP38-2, another great locomotive, everything from mainline to branch to even switching. So Janek took these pictures, snuck them to me this morning. Here's a nice side profile of the 38-2 in the orange and white. Brown numbering too, believe it or not. Even the lettering, people think it's black. It's actually brown. It's a real dark brown, like a chocolate brown. And then last but not least, ICG gray and orange. Slightly different orange, not quite as bright as the previous paint scheme, and that aircraft gray, if you will, color. And a lot of people did not like that paint scheme when it came out. The orange and white, I think, aesthetically, most people like that paint scheme, but for maintenance reasons, if you haven't, just take a look online or any Illinois Central Gulf book, you'll see that the orange and white did not weather well at all. And that was one of the reasons why they went to the orange and gray. Yeah, David says too clean. Yeah, you're right. Way too clean. These, if you pre-ordered these, this is what your locomotive would have looked like the day they showed up at I don't know, Champaign Yard. These are all ready for you to grime up as you like. And yeah, it's kind of neat to see Illinois Central stuff. We just had the Illinois Central GP18s. That was in the green diamond paint scheme, which lasted throughout the 60s. And then right after the merger of the GM&O and the IC, they introduced the orange and white paint scheme, which, yeah, one of my favorite paint schemes. I don't know why. Even as a young boy growing up in central New England, everybody knew about the mighty IC. And, pretty much a color scheme that lasted until, if memory serves me correctly, about 1986 when the Death Star paint scheme came out. And of course, that went away when CN bought them. Jay Cure, I'm going to put your thing up there because that's cool. Seems to be avoiding calling the popsicle scheme. Good humor called. Want their wrapper back. Yeah, it is kind of a popsicle scheme, isn't it? It's one of those things where it was for maintenance reasons, really, that paint scheme came about. So July through September, you've got some stuff to look forward to. These will be on their way in a few short months. I know I can't wait for a few of these GP38-2s. Let's see. So I'll just kind of go through here real quick, see if anybody's got any questions. And these were really requested too. A lot of people requested these. So yeah, I'm excited about those. When he showed me I think that's the reason why Janek sent those. Is I live not more than a few paces from a former ICG right away, and Janek's like, I know what I'll show him. I'll show him some ICG stuff. He knows I'm a sucker for a lot of Midwest roads. So we got some great stuff coming, whether it be a pre-order or something that's going to be on the dealer shelf soon. And anybody out there that's got the GP18s, let me know what you think. I'm really impressed with mine. It's a great running locomotive. I've already run it on my little switching layout. And a couple of weeks ago, we ran them on a Fremo set up. In fact, we've got video from Ricky. Ricky Keel sent me some video, and I think that's going to be up on our social media here pretty soon. So speaking of video, real quick, I want to share something with you guys. Ben with BA Rail Systems, he does some reviews, and he did a really cool review on our 40-foot CP boxcars. Let me go ahead and get that up here so you guys can kind of see what he's been working on lately. I'll get this going. So Ben of BA Rail Systems, he's done some great reviews in the past, and recently he reviewed the Ready to Roll 40-foot CP rail cars, box cars. And he got a single, and then as you can see here, they're available as a 3-pack. Now these are at your dealer right now. They just came out. He does a really neat review with his son because they're great for younger modelers, like I've been saying. So if you get a chance after the show, if you haven't seen our links that we put on our social media to Ben's site, check it out. It's BA Rail System. Did a great job on reviewing these CP boxcars. And his son did a pretty good job too. I think it's his son's first review. So if you get a chance, go ahead and check that out. Great little review, BA Rail Systems. And he'll be doing some more reviews for us too in the not too distant future. So you can imagine we're busy at Athearn. We talked about some great announcements last week. We talked about some great things that are coming up here. And it's something else I want to talk to you guys about briefly. And want to let you know that we appreciate your business. We appreciate everything that you do for us. And we're not above making mistakes now and then. Things happen. In the mass manufacturing world, we try to catch all those problems before they get out of hand. And usually we do. But every once in a while, something happens. And let me share something with you. If you bought an SD60M Triclops recently, and this is the Genesis 2.0 version, we've got something to share with you. You may have encountered some frustrations, and we don't like to hear that. But we made a statement yesterday on our social media, and it's basically saying we're acknowledging there's a problem. A lot of you folks, and I know a lot of you folks, bought these SD60Ms. They were highly anticipated, especially for the Genesis 2.0. And, you know, we've been around for 75 years. We've created a lot of great products, and we were really proud of these locomotives. But we started to get some feedback on there. Now, let me just say, with any mass manufactured item, you're going to have, you know, something happen occasionally. You might have a few customers report something not just right, and that's where you get to talk to our customer service, and they set you up, and you're on your way. But every once in a while, something else happens, and you know, I'll read the statement for those that don't have social media, but you know, we've heard your concerns, and this has prompted an immediate audit of our inventory confirming this issue. Now, the production flaw is causing derailments and rotating bearing caps to separate from the locomotive. So basically, the little bearing caps that you see on the end axles there, they would fall out, and in some cases, the locomotive would derail, even on a rather large radii curve. And we started working with our customer service department and tracking this data. And basically, you know, not every locomotive displays these symptoms, but the previously tested development samples that we got, they all work perfectly. However, a complication occurred during production that needs addressing. Now, keep in mind, development is working towards that fix, as well as putting in place additional resources to make sure it does not happen again. We at Athearn are committed to supporting the model railroad hobby and appreciate your past business. We are taking these complaints seriously and actively working towards a satisfactory solution. Now, when we have a fix and we have thoroughly tested it and we've checked it inside and out, we will we will then come up with a plan to take care of everybody out there that's got an SD60M that's affected. Basically, the statement goes on to say, when we have a fix that has been thoroughly tested, we'll implement a service plan to get these locomotives repaired with the least amount of hassle to the owner and under warranty. If your locomotive is working as expected, continuing to use it, it will not affect the future repairability. Now, Athearn does not advise any specific do-it-yourself repairs to these locomotives currently, primarily because we do not want you to inadvertently damage the locomotive's fine details, but also because we're expecting the forthcoming solution to be a better fix, requiring very minimal effort. Once our solution is finalized, we will make available helpful information explaining the problem in detail and what steps Athearn will be taking to correct it. So what does that all mean to you? If you've got an SD60M and you've had issues with it, we acknowledge that. And trust me when I say myself and the developers here at Athearn are working hard to take care of you guys. We understand that this is a hobby. We understand that you spend your hard-earned money on our products, and we want those products to be enjoyable. And we want those products to operate the way that we advertise them to. And that's why we've taken this so seriously. Now, the reason why a lot of you that had brought up these concerns hadn't heard anything is because in an approach like this, we need to look at the big picture. We need to see if we're all looking at the same thing. We want to make sure that we're not just having a knee-jerk reaction. We wanted to make sure that everything that we do from this point forward on this particular locomotive is to the utmost to your standards. And trust me when I say development has been busy working on this, as well as all the other stuff that we've been talking about. So in the short term, what does this mean to you? Well, do me a favor. Don't contact customer service. Don't call them. Don't email them. Say, hey, I'm affected by that. Wait until we come out with more information. We have acknowledged the SD60M issue as it was outlined, and we are working on that fix. So we just ask for some patience while we spend as much development time as necessary to get that fix in place. And when we do have a fix in place, we will let you know. And there will be a plan involved. But until then, there's no need to call or email or anything of that nature. Just wait for our action plan, and then we'll have a set amount of instructions for you to follow, and we're going to make it as painless as possible. Nobody wants to have a beautiful locomotive that just sits on a shelf. We are modelers. We like our locomotives to run, and we apologize. We do have things in place now that are going to make this a lot harder for anything like this to happen again. And we do read those comments out there in Facebook land and Instagram land and YouTube and all that. We do read your comments, even if we don't always reply to them. We appreciate that. And rest assured, we will take care of you guys. So with that, what do you say we change gears a little bit? Let's do some rail fanning. And where I picked today actually had some trains. We were fortunate last week. We're going to go to British Columbia. Well, I've got you trains. It's not moving right now, but I got you a train. Nobody said I had to be moving. It's Train Tuesday. There's the train. All right, let's open it up for some questions real quick and see what everybody is out there. And I will tell you that both, I think you guys met John last week, and of course Janik. Most of you know Janik. Those guys are busy. You guys are going to love what they're working on. Let's see. This is a good comment. I'm going to put this up here. Whoops, sorry, wrong one. You guys are talking fast today. Ramsey says, we need Genesis 2.0 SD90 Max CP or CEFX. Well, when you're done watching this, since you're watching it live, Go back to our YouTube page and look up the announcements that we had last week. I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised. Kevin, there's a train. You can't say no train, Jim. It's right there. In fact, there's something else moving. It could be a semi. I don't know, but there's a train there, Kevin. You can't say no train Tuesday, Jim. Let's see who else has got some questions. Oh, I saw a good one on the surf liners. Jim, do you know what the California cars look like? They are not the Pacific Surfliner cars, the Capital Corridor cars. Hey, it's moving, guys. Good news for you is that is a project that Janik and now John are deeply involved in. And the cool thing is we're kind of changing things up here. We don't want to hide everything behind the curtain. We want to keep you guys in the know a little bit. And so as more stuff develops, they're going to be getting it to me. And in some cases, we're going to have John on the show. We're going to have Janik on the show. We're going to talk a little bit about it. And rest assured, on big announcements like the Surfliners and the AC 4400s, those are big deals. So when there's a big announcement about those, we'll bring the guys on and talk about it a little bit more. Yes, those freight cars do look interesting. I will say that. Is there going to be another run of the P40 and the P42? I don't know. You thinking anniversary paint schemes? Those were a hit. They went right to the dealers, and they are. I don't think we have any more in the Athens stock. Chase, you got a question? Yeah, I think you asked it twice. So I want to grab you. Will you be making the third Wheeling and Lake Erie tunnel motor since you only did 2 of the 3? Well, I don't know off the top of my head, Chase, because a couple of different things become involved. I don't know if they pre-sold enough of those to justify that one or not, but that doesn't always mean it's not going to happen. It's probably a pretty good chance it's going to happen. I just don't know when or when it falls into the production schedule. How about more F59 PHIs to go with the Surfliners? That's a good suggestion, Adam. Yep, that's a good suggestion. Would make sense. Steven, he's saying, hey, how about more heritage diesels? Yeah, I think that's a given because remember, we announced a couple in January. And the reason why we did it is 2 reasons. Remember, UP's repainted some of those since 2017. And of course, we've got new versions of, Genesis has gone up. So you'd get a newer version of the repaint, of the heritage paints, and you'd have some new Genesis features. Jim, will the Genesis 2.0-9's DCC ready version have an optional 28 millimeter baffle speaker slot, or will we have to use Sugar Cube speakers? Jake, those were designed for the Sugar Cube speakers. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be stuck just to that. If you're an enterprising modeler and good at scratch building and stuff, I'm sure you can fit the speaker of your choice. But just as a design parameter, they were designed for the dual Sugar Cube style speakers. Adam again says, how about HO Genesis Viewliners to go with our new and future Amtrak P42s? Sounds like a good suggestion to me. Richard, I get a nice question suggestion here, so I'm going to put up there. Athearn produces so many great diesel locomotives in HO scale. It would be great to see more of these models also produce an N scale. Also got my first HO Athearn scale train set for Christmas present in 1967. Cheers, says Rich. Rich, that's a good comment, good question. We're not opposed to it. We're not opposed to it. While N scale is typically not as big of a seller as HO, we are seeing inroads of people purchasing more and more N scale. And as modelers' tastes change, so does Athearn. We'll keep up with those trends. So nothing's impossible. Just keep your eyes on our social media threads and our announcement videos, because you never know what's going to be coming down the line here. ES44s and Genesis 2.0, asked Kyle. Probably down the road. So one of the things, while we're talking about Genesis and Genesis 2.0, there's a couple of things that really show the difference. Genesis, you get all that great detail that the locomotive would have. You get all of that. If you get the DCC with sound, you get that. When you go to Genesis 2.0, you start getting details like the see-through steps. You're going to get even more detail. But the biggest thing that you really see in Genesis 2.0 is lighting features. And if you're like me and you're interested in lighting features, you go from a Genesis 1 that just has, probably a headlight, maybe a option 5 light, like a rotating beacon or something of that nature. When you go to Genesis 2.0, now you have control of not only the headlight, but now the number boards, the ground lights, things of that nature. So ES44s and Genesis 2.0 in the future, it's definitely a possibility. The biggest thing that we have to work against is time. And believe me, the developers at Athearn are really busy. They're keeping very busy. Let's see, Chris. Jim, is there a way that you can do cab dealing like custom? Is there a way that you can do that to you guys' locomotives? Well, if I'm understanding your question correctly, Chris, what we do is I don't want to say a generic interior because it does matter on the locomotive, but if it's an EMD we'll say it's a EMD GP9. It's going to have an EMD GP9 style interior. Now, what you can do with it is entirely up to the modeler. And if you haven't had a chance to stroll around YouTube and some of the many fine model railroad forums, there are guys out there that have done just what you're asking about. They've customized their interiors. And it's pretty cool. We don't do it at that level because if we were to do everything, the price would just be to the point where a lot of folks will probably not purchase the locomotive. So we get all the really high detail stuff that you'd expect to see in that particular locomotive, but we still give you some flexibility as far as your own creativity and how far you want to go with it. And like I said, check out some of the YouTube channels out there. There are some amazing Genesis locomotives that have been further detailed and weathered. Let's see. More requests for Mac R models. We see you guys. We see you guys. Andrew. Jim, tell Janik to make the road names for the AC 4400 CW UP 90s version SP CNW, CSX, YN2, and Ferromex. Well, Andrew, that is actually a big team effort. It's more than just Janik, it's also John. John is deeply involved in that project as well as a lot of our other developers. It takes a team to get that done, just because every single one of those railroads that you mentioned is going to have different details and paint and layout as the next one. So those are all great suggestions. Now I'm going to tell you, Andrew, if you can, go to our contact us page at athearn.com and look for that product suggestion email and go there and put those suggestions in there. Now, if you haven't seen it, look again on our Facebook post. Last week, we had a survey on the Dash 9. Go ahead and fill that Dash 9 survey out, because one of the questions we ask you is, hey, here's some road names. What would you like to see? And you can select as many as you like. Let's see. So for in the comment section, we've got kind of a pool going. How long is that F-150 going to wait at the tracks? They're more patient in Canada. I mean, look at the scenery. Why would you want to rush? I saw a question. Oh, here we go, David. David says, yes, Genesis, GP30s, please. Well, I would love that. Being a guy that models a CB&Q, I would love some GP30s in HO. Here's a good question. How does Athearn position itself towards the European U.S. model railroad market? Well, honestly, we haven't really done too much. And it's not really European. It's more Australian and South America we've touched a little bit on. It's like anything. Since we are in the continental United States, we tend to get our sales from folks that model predominantly North American railroads. So we haven't really, gone into either the prototype for European roads. At least for now, we haven't really seen a big demand for it, but that can always change. And if it does change, if the demand changes and we get more and more feedback on it, of course you can rely on Athearn to be there to follow along and take care of those needs. Chris wants to know if we'd ever done any structures in the past. Not really. We did billboards many years ago, and they were popular. But pretty much the focus at Athearn is going to be locomotives and rolling stock. That's always been, for 75 years, that's what we've done. Starting out as a simple little company that did a boxcar kit in 1946 all the way to Genesis 2.0 -9s in 2021. We're pretty much concentrating on that. Now, we do a few little accessories like tractor trailers and vehicles and such, but for the most part, there's so many different manufacturers out there that do structures that we figured, we're gonna concentrate on the locomotives and the rolling stock. But nice question. Thanks for asking. Let's see. Yeah, MDC did some interesting stuff back in the day. Any chance of doing the round? That's a good question. I'm going to put it up there. Any chance of redoing the Roundhouse box cab unit locomotive? Anything is possible, Bob. Anything is possible. Yeah, we did a few of those buildings in the past. It's probably been, what, 15, 20 years? It's been a while. But they really didn't do all that great, like the Santa Fe Depot. I mean, that was a pretty safe shot. Hey, there you go, train. The curse is lifted. We had to go to the Canadian side to get that curse lifted. Or I should say, Norfolk Southern bailed us out last week. That guy in the F-150, or that person in the F-150, is got to have the patience of a saint. They really do, because no sooner did that last train leave and another one came by. Maybe they're in the cab of the truck watching Train Tuesday and they don't mind. Yeah, about 20 years ago. Yeah, and honestly, even though the Santa Fe Depot was a pretty safe bet, you're obviously going to do better with a Santa Fe structure than you would, say, Rock Island or a Southern. It still wasn't where we thought it would be, and that's why we just really have not gone any further with the structures. Ted's thinking that the F-150 is a rail fan. It could be. Yeah, it could be. Maybe we shouldn't do structures. Maybe we should do that black F-150 for our next release. I mean, it's sitting there long enough that John and Janet could get drawings of it real quick. We could call it the Train Tuesday F-150. Probably require some type of licensing, but there you go. Could be the joke on everybody's module. So a lot of great suggestions. I'm not reading them all just because there's a lot of great suggestions, and you know what I'm going to say. I'm going to point you to that suggestion email. David, this is an interesting comment / question I'll throw up there. Bring Genesis to N scale, and you'll have your first loco, a super detailed SP-GP9, and you'd sell out in minutes. I'd buy 5 right off the bat. I bet you would, David. I definitely bet you would. Man, a Genesis N scale locomotive. Let's think about that for a second, because you know what's included with a Genesis HO scale locomotive. Now, in my prime, I used to super detail N scale locomotives, meaning I put all the things you see on a Genesis locomotive on an N scale piece. That's the windshield wipers, the lift rings, the grab irons, the speed recorder, all of that in my prime. In order for Athearn to do that in N scale, that would be, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but that would be tough. I'm not going to lie. That would be a tough one. And you would also see that reflected in the price. No longer would a N scale locomotive retail for, let's say $140, $150. Now you're looking at an N scale locomotive that, in all actuality, would probably be more than an HO scale Genesis locomotive, just because of the physics and nature of it all. And then let's not forget too, you've got sound and a decoder. Again, not impossible. It can be done. My eyes would say thank you, because I'm getting to that age now where I don't really particularly enjoy putting cut levers on an N scale anymore. But something to think about. It's an interesting comment, and I don't think you'll see anything like that right now, but we don't know what the future holds. 20 years ago, we didn't think we'd have Genesis locomotives like we do now. Tyler says, and here in California, half the people don't have the patience to wait. Tyler, I think that's pretty much anywhere in the country. This has got to be the patient person award for waiting for a train. I'm going to make a bet that he's going to be there when we close the show in about 5 minutes. Let's see. Good thing he's not delivering pizza. Yeah, that would be my luck. Okay, we've got a few minutes for maybe one or two more questions. And unlike that truck, we're going to get going. So any last questions on anything that we've talked about today, stuff that's coming out? I'm pretty excited about those ICG Jeeps. I'm in so much trouble. I just bought those Burlington Northern GP18s. Yeah, that might be the new F-150. My screen's a lot smaller than yours, but yeah, it could be a 2021. Kind of hard to tell from here. All right, last call for questions, and we're going to pull the pin on this episode. Oh, that's a good suggestion. Genesis CP Versa coil cars. That would take some research. So, I mean, I'd be all for it, but I'm sure every time John and Janik see me, they're like, here comes Jim with his list. All right, well, if that is it, unlike this truck, I don't think he's leaving. We are going to leave, and I want to thank y'all for coming on board today and sharing this time with me and seeing these great models. Some great stuff to look forward to. Athearn is celebrating its 75th anniversary in a big way, and we're just delighted to keep giving you updates on the new stuff that we're working on and this new stuff that's here. We love hearing from you guys, and sooner than later we're going to get to see each other at a train show, which I'm really looking forward to finally seeing you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and like I said, pull the pin on this show. I want all you guys out there to be happy, be healthy, stay safe, and until I see you next Tuesday at 3:30 on Train Tuesday, high greens, everybody. Have a great day.